Hi ladies, in this video we're going to go through some of the questions for 10D. Now I know I said we'll skip a bit of chapter 10 because I was looking at 10A, B and C, and I think you guys will be okay just moving into 10D, but do go back if you need to. So this is for students who are working a little bit ahead, so I'm kind of thinking you'll be okay with doing this. Okay, so solving equations. So what we basically do is we need to get the pronumeral on its own. So we rearrange the equation just to get, so if we look at the first one, we've got 4x equals 20. So when you think about that, that's basically saying 4 times what gives you 20. Now you might be able to think in your head, oh, 4 times 5 equals 20, but eventually you're going to get to more complicated equations where you're not going to be able to just quickly do it in your head. So we do that, what we call the inverse operation. So here we've got 4 times x, okay, so 4x is 4 times x. The opposite sign to multiply is to divide. So to get rid of that 4, so 4 times, we'd now do divided by 4. And whatever we do to the left-hand side, we have to do to the right-hand side. Now 4 divided by 4 is 1, so we basically say, oh, they cancel out, and then we're left with just x. 20 divided by 4 gives you 5. Okay, so even though you could do that in your head, I'm just showing you how we do it algebraically. Now this one here, 7x equals 56. So we've got 7 times x. So to do the inverse operation, we're going to divide. So we divide by 7 for both sides. So 7 divided by 7 is 1, so they cancel out. And then we're left with x equals 56 divided by 7, which gives you 8. All right, let's have a look at B. So B part I, we've got 5 equals y minus 2. Now our pronumeral is on the right-hand side. It doesn't matter what side it is on. When you're subtracting a number, the opposite is to add a number. So if we were to add 2 to that side, negative 2 plus 2 gives you 0. But whatever we do to one side, we also need to do to the other. So those 2's cancel out. 5 plus 2 gives you 7. So 7 equals y. Now in algebra, we tend to write the pronumeral first on the left-hand side. So you can just write that as y equals 7. But 7 equals y is exactly the same thing. Okay, part 2, we've got 38 equals y minus 26. So again, we've got the minus 26. So the opposite to subtracting is to add. So we add 26 to get rid of it. So that disappears. So 38 plus 26 gives you 64. And we tend to write the y first. Okay, let's move on to C. I might just quick move it so we can just still see that question. So C part I, we've got 20 equals q over 2. Now, remember in A we had multiply. Here we've got divide. So that we already know that the opposite sign to divide is to multiply. So we've got q divided by 2. So to get rid of that 2, we multiply by 2. And whatever we do to one side, we also have to do to the other. When you're writing your multiply by 2, you can just write it underneath just to remind you what you have to do. Okay, so then we've basically got 2 divided by 2, so they disappear or cancel each other out. And then we've got 20 divided by 2, which is 40. So 40 equals q, but remember we tend to write the pronumeral first. Okay, and then part 2, we have 7 equals q over 3. So again, we've got a division. So we're going to multiply by 3, and whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. So 7 times 3 is 21. It's equal to q. and write Q first. So we've got Q equals 21. All right, let's have a look at question 2. So question 2, we've got a lot more questions, but it's exactly the same thing. Okay, so let's do not every single question. I might just do some from the bottom row. So let's have a look at Q first. So we've got B times 10 equals 120. Now in algebra, we tend to not write B times 10. We would write that as 10B. Think of it as, if B was for bananas, we wouldn't go to the shop and say, I want bananas times 10, please. You would say 10 bananas. So we kind of write it in the same way. All right, so we've got 10 times. So the inverse operation of that is to divide. So we're going to divide both sides by 10. So the 10s cancel out, and then we're left with 120 divided by 10, which gives you 12. And when you think about it, 12 times 10 gives you 120. So you can always check your answer through what we call substitution. So putting that number back into the equation. Okay, so question R. So you can probably guess what the answer is going to be. Okay, but let's solve it algebraically. So we want to get P on its own. So we've got minus 2. So if we add 2, that minus 2 is going to disappear, and we're just left with P equals 11. All right, and maybe we'll finish with T. So we've got N minus 2 equals 1, which is pretty much quite similar to the question R. We've got minus 2, so we're going to add 2. So remember, whatever we do to one side, we need to do to the other side. Okay? And if you like, you can go back and substitute your number back in to check your answer. All right, so question 3 I put in because when you have, so those previous questions, we only had one step. Here we've got 2 steps, and that's because we have what we call a constant, so a number on its own, but we've also got a coefficient. So this question here is basically asking you, what did you do to get from 7a plus 3 equals 38 to 7a equals 35? So what we need to do to unravel this equation is we need to get rid of the constant first. Okay, so we don't touch the pronumeral just yet. Okay, so even though we read it from the equation from left to right, so you might think, oh, let's get rid of that 7. You should get rid of the constant first. Okay, so we've got plus 3. So the first step is to subtract 3. So we're getting rid of that constant first. And you can see we're then left with 7a equals 35, because that minus 3 cancels out with that 3. And then 38 minus 3 gives you 35. And then we get rid of that 7 because it's 7 times a, we're going to divide both sides by 7. Okay, so we're left with 7a divided by 7 just gives you a, and then 35 divided by 7 gives you 5. Okay, so question B, you can see we got rid of that constant first by adding 10 to both sides. So then we're left with just 4b on the left-hand side, and then 14 plus 10 gives you 24. Okay, so we've got 4b equals 24. And then we get rid of that coefficient. So it's 4 times b, so we're going to be dividing by 4. So that 4 cancels out, and we're just left with b equals 24 divided by 4, which gives you b equals 6. All right, question C, we have a bracket, and that bracket is multiplied by 2. So when you have this scenario, you get rid of that 2 first. Okay, so even though you might think, oh, this 6 is a constant number by itself, we're kind of working, we're unraveling things, I guess. So we get rid of that 2 first, and then we get rid of that constant. So you can see here we've got divided by, which is a bit hard to see, but it is a division sign. So 2 divided by 2 leaves you, 2 times q plus 6 divided by 2 leaves you with q plus 6. And then 20 divided by 2 gives you 10. Okay, so think of this bracket as kind of like it's protected. It's protected by the guard, this 2, so we have to get rid of this 2 first before we can get to the q plus 6. Okay, then we've got this q plus 6. So we're getting rid of this constant. So the plus 6, we subtract 6 from both sides. So we're left with q equals 10 minus 6 gives you 4. All right, question D. This time we've got our pronumeral on the right-hand side. So we're going to get rid of this constant first. So even though we've got x divided by 10, remember we get rid of our constant first unless there's a bracket, unless it's inside the bracket. Okay, so 3 minus 3 just leaves you with, sorry, x10 plus 3 minus 3 leaves you with x over 10. And then 5 minus 3 gives you 2. And then we want to get rid of this 10. So we're going to multiply both sides by 10. So x over 10 times 10 leaves you with x, and then 2 times 10 gives you 20. Okay, so 20 equals x, or x equals 20, same thing. All right, question 4. For each of the equations, state the first operation you would apply to both sides to solve it. So this is basically testing your understanding of how we unravel an equation. Excuse me. So remember, we get rid of the constant first. So for A, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to subtract 3, okay, to get rid of that. For question B, the first thing we're going to do is get rid of that minus 7 by adding 7. Question C, remember this 5 is protecting the A plus 3, so it has to go first. So that's 5 times that bracket. So to get rid of 5 times, we're going to divide by 5. And then lastly, question D, we've got another bracket. So we've got to get rid of that 2. So it's 2 times. So we're going to be dividing by 2. All right, question 5. Solve each of the following equations algebraically and then check your solution. Okay, so remember I said before you can check your solution using substitution. All right, let's have a look at question A. We've got 6f minus 2 equals 64. So remember, we need to get rid of the constant first. So we're going to add 2 to both sides. So I put that 2 below the negative 2 just to show what we're doing. So they cancel out and we're left with 6f equals 64 plus 2 gives you 66. Oops. I just realized I wrote 64. I think because when I was writing, I was actually looking to see what was coming next. Sorry, girls. That's supposed to be an F. So 6f equals 66. So this is 6 times f, so we need to divide by 6. And notice how I'm writing the division like this, because I find it a lot easier to show that, oh, we're just cancelling that out and we're left with f equals 11. All right, let's do, they're all pretty similar. Let's do H. I shouldn't say they're all similar. I feel like we've done similar ones before. Oh, we were supposed to do substitution. All right, let's go back and do substitution for question A. And I might do that in a different color. Oops. Let's just change maybe to a blue. Okay, so when it talks about substitution, we've got f equals 11. So if I go back to check, we've got 6 times f, so it's going to be 6 times, 6 times 11 minus 2 equals 64. So let's just make sure that left-hand side is equal to the right-hand side. So 6 times 11 gives you 66 minus 2 equals 64. 66 minus 2 is 64. Yes, that is equal to 64. Good. I know I got it right, which is a good thing. You wouldn't want your math teacher to get it wrong, would you? Okay, so let's look at question H now. So we've got this 6, so subtract 6 from both sides. So that goes away. Oops, cross that out a bit better. And divided by 4 equals 8 minus 6 gives you 2. All right, we've got divided by 4, so we're going to multiply both sides by 4. Now, when you do this, you can use a different color if you want, so you can easily see the difference. So we've got n equals 2 times 4, which is 8, and let's do our substitution. So there's our final answer. Substituting it back into your equation, we're going to have 8 divided by 4. I don't know why I put it in brackets there. Usually I only put it in brackets if I'm multiplying. All right, plus 6 equals 8. 8 divided by 4 gives you 2. And that's going to be 8 equals 8. Great, I know I got it right. All right, let's do one with a bracket. So 4q plus 8. Okay, let's see if I can remember. 4q plus 8 equals 40. And I think this was in brackets, and I didn't write which question number it was. So let's just have a look. Question S. Okay, so we're doing question S. All right, so remember this 4 is kind of protecting this bracket, so let's get rid of that first. So it's 4 times, so we're going to divide by 4, both sides by 4. And we're left with q plus 8. 40 divided by 4 gives you 10. Now we've got plus 8, so let's subtract 8 from both sides. So that disappears, and then we've got q equals 10 minus 8, which is 2. So that's your final answer. Let's just substitute it in to check. Okay, so we've got 4q, which is 2. Okay, so let's do our bracket. 2 plus 8 is 10. And then we have 40 equals 40. That is correct. So we know we're right. All right, girls, all the best. Bye.